Now, let's assume I wanted to make this line in equation form, or take an equation and make this line. How would I do that? There are two important things you need to know before you can make a linear graph. You need to know the slope. So in this case, I'm going up by 2, 1, 2, and over by 1. So my slope is 2 over 1, or just 2. You also need to know, where does your graph cross the y-axis? In this case, my graph cleanly crosses at positive 1. Once you have those two pieces of information, you can make your equation for a graph, which that is just going to boil down to what we like to call slope intercept form. This will be y equals your slope times x plus your y-intercept. Now, your x and your y just stay the letters x and y. So y equals something times x. This plus will actually change along with your y-intercept. So if my y-intercept is negative, it will be minus. If my y-intercept is positive, it will be plus. In the case we just found out, our slope was 2. Oops, that's 2m. That should be 2x. And our y-intercept was a positive 1. Just to go back to that graph, that's the exact equation I used in which to make this graph. So if I put in a minus 1, notice how I'm still going up by 2. Let me zoom in a little bit more. 1, 2, and over by 1, which is my slope. But I'm now starting at negative 1. If I change my slope to 2 over 3, notice I'm now going up 1, 2, and over 3. 1, 2, 3. This is slope-intercept form. And in order to have slope-intercept form, you need at least these two pieces of information. To make slope-intercept form, you're going to, as the name suggests, you're going to need the slope. You're also going to need what is called the y-intercept. Now, if you're not given the slope, as long as you have 2 points, or maybe even the graph, you can make it work. So for example, if I said, hey, I have 0.1 of 2 comma 1, 0.2 of 3 comma 2, and I have a y-intercept of, let's just say, negative 2. Actually be negative 1. I could make my line. My first step is to find my slope, which is just subtract my y's and then subtract my x's. And then put that into my equation. So my equation would just be y equals 1x minus 1. Now, if they tell you your y-intercept in 1 point, so for example, y-intercept equals 3, and my point will be, I don't know, 5, 2. You can find out your entire equation from that 2 pieces of information. if you remember that, as you saw, my y-intercept is when the x is 0. So, in this case, my y-intercept really means my point is 0, 3. And so I can find my slope and then put it into an equation. So my slope would be my y minus my y and my x minus my x. 3 minus 2 is 1. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. So my slope is negative 1/5, making my equation y equals 3x. I lied. Y equals slope x. So y equals negative 1/5 x plus 3. And that's how you would use slope-intercept form. Remember, you need at least your slope and your y-intercept. But even if they don't draw that out for you, you can find your slope given either 2 points or maybe even with 1 point and your y-intercept.